The music scene is difficult in part because it's tough to play music well. There's that feeling of being totally vibed, getting the stink eye from other players in the orchestra or on the bandstand. Have you ever experienced that? In the arts and music fields, it's easy to get beaten down. I wonder if that's why so many college graduates drop out of their dream careers as artists. But I'm just not sure it has to be this way. Even the great jazz saxophonist Charlie Parker, when he was young, faced challenges. Now, if you're a jazz fan, you've probably heard this one. Charlie Parker, just a teenager, goes to a jam session, eager to show what he's got. The tune, I Got Rhythm. It's a beast of a song with chord changes coming at breakneck speed. Now, imagine a 15-year-old Charlie Parker, alto sax in hand, full of ambition, but the changes come too fast and he struggles. And then, in front of the entire room, drummer Joe Jones throws a cymbal at Parker's feet. Imagine that. One of the greatest jazz icons to be, humiliated, defeated, walking off the stage, heartbroken. What I love about this story isn't the humiliation, of course. It's what Parker did afterward. He didn't give up. He spent the next year practicing harder than ever, working through the frustration, the sting of that moment. When he returned, he had transformed. He could play the changes, navigating those tricky chord progressions with ease. He had turned that embarrassment into the fuel that made him one of the greatest improvisers of all time. I mean, Charlie Parker, along with trumpeter Dizzy Gillespie, completely revolutionized jazz, pioneering bebop, a subgenre mastered to this day by only a handful of musicians. I grew up in a time when many of the legends in jazz were alive and well, and a great number of them loved to give back through teaching. Picture this, it's 1991 at the Monterey Fairgrounds in California. I'm 15 years old, somehow at a rehearsal for a concert with Dizzy Gillespie. Yes, the Dizzy Gillespie, who impacted 3 major genres, pioneering the intersection of swing, bebop, and Afro-Cuban jazz. So here I am, sitting there with my saxophone. I can barely get my foot to tap in rhythm. My foot's flying everywhere, totally out of sync, and Dizzy stops the band. He walks over to me, all eyes in the room following him, and he looks at me. Now he stares at me and says, "Son, when you tap your foot, it comes down on the downbeat and up on the upbeat. There's a fulcrum point at the heel. It's not just random, it's essential." At the time, I was mortified. But in hindsight, Dizzy was teaching me something much bigger than how to tap my foot. He was teaching me about detail. Dizzy was right. The downbeat and the upbeat do work together like yin and yang. That foot tapping moment has guided me in so many ways throughout my life. It inspired me to study the details of rhythm and harmony. And I mean really get into the thick of it all, just aiming for accuracy and artistic integrity as a jazz improviser and composer. As I was learning to navigate artistic lessons, I also felt like I was armed with my downbeats and my upbeats, marching toward battle. What's in a downbeat? It's all downbeats. Let's try it together. Yeah, that's the march. It's pretty much just like our heartbeat, very steady, constant, predictable. Yeah, it's a pulse we immediately recognize. So now we're going to try some upbeats. Upbeats add syncopation, which tends to be fun and surprising. We're going to start with a wonderful jazz rhythm. This is the Charleston, and it combines one downbeat and one upbeat. Let's try it together. Down, up, down, up. Yeah, that's it. Can you hear it? All right, we're going to try one more rhythm. You like that one? You're going to love this one. This is the Afro-Cuban 3-2 clave. Try this with me. That's it. That's it. I love that one. So, how did you all do with the upbeats? They're a bit more difficult than the downbeats, right? This downbeat, upbeat dichotomy, hinged by Dizzy's fulcrum, is filled with predictability and unpredictability. It's really the rhythm of life, isn't it? Every single one of us has experienced syncopations in life that arise and complicate things. They're actually what can wipe out your career before it's even begun. Another name for syncopation, this variable upbeat, I call it the fast track. I ask a lot of music majors, what are your hopes and dreams when you get out of college? So many say the same thing. You know what it is? Play music. It was that simple for me too. So I'm still considering my big question. With so much passion and talent, why do college graduates in the arts drop out of their dream career paths? I mean, what exactly happens to us after college? The answer seems clear, that syncopations in life get in the way, that the real world is too challenging, that there are too many barriers to artistic and financial success in the field. So the solution to all this is surprising, and it took me decades to learn what works and why. Picture this, I'm right out of college, and I don't even think of needing a solution at all. I really see myself marching toward a future where I can just live out my own dreams. I gotta say, I ran up against the fast track right away. You think about life transitions. I've heard these described as major stressors in life. Things like a big move, change in employment, marriage. Experts say it's best to experience no more than one or maybe two of these at any one time. So, what happens in my first year out of college? My wife and I get married. We decide to move to New York City. I have 0 job prospects, and it's September 1st, 2001. Talk about the fast track. To top it off, look at what was happening in the music industry then. Digital file sharing was shaking everything up. The dream of getting financial backing from a record label was being replaced in favor of some audience exposure without monetary gain. I really was starting life without a safety net. To try to gain a foothold, I visited local elementary schools and high schools, just letting everyone know that I was interested in teaching private lessons. And eventually, I had a teaching studio of around 20 students per week. I also started meeting people, finding collaborators, recording my own projects. I really tried to keep my sights on this idea of carving a niche, just keeping a focus on working hard and remaining proactive. 8 years passed, and it was 2009, which was a pivotal year for me. I'd seen so many students come to me to learn jazz, and so often I saw this gap. Musicians weren't just lacking gigs, they were lacking community, a place to keep growing. I wanted to recreate the apprenticeship model where musicians could learn from each other in real-world settings. I remember walking out of the bedroom in our apartment and approaching my wife saying, I can't believe this, but I think I'm going to be the one who starts New York Jazz Academy. And that's what I did. I dedicated hundreds of hours interviewing teachers across New York City, spent thousands on advertising, found a space to run ensembles and classes, opened our doors, and watched it fail instantly. I'd planned to open one afternoon a week and offer after-school jazz rehearsals to high schoolers, and they just didn't show up. I remember coming home from a rehearsal, asking my wife, wow, what have I done? She just gave me encouragement that it would all work out, and it did. While only a couple teens showed up, you know who started calling right away? It was adults. I'd pick up the phone and they'd ask, what about me? Do you have any classes for adults? And do you know what you say when someone asks? You say, yes. Just as things were getting underway with the Jazz Academy, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and the prognosis was not good. What most people still don't know is that when they were calling and emailing New York Jazz Academy, I was picking up saying, New York Jazz Academy, how may I help you? From the waiting room at Sloan Kettering, the hospital where I spent most of my days. I had 2 small children at home, all while working on this new career of mine. These stressors from the fast track felt totally insurmountable, and I had no idea how all this would conclude. Fortunately, my wife is a survivor with us today, all these years later. Thank you. It was like the fast track was presenting all these syncopations, but I just tried to keep marching along through those moments. That series of downbeats, they mirror life in so many ways. The downbeat is internal, felt from our heart. It's our constant core, our foundation, both in music and in life. Synonymous with home, comfort, core values, stable and guiding force. It motivates us, fuels us, helps us realize our hopes and dreams. The downbeat really can be summed up as one word: love. Ultimately, I think if the downbeat is love, this passionate and constant core, then the upbeat is struggle. It's unpredictable, variable. It complicates things. I've come to realize there are really only 2 things that matter in life: love and struggle. Can you have one without the other? Do you really want one without the other? Why settle for just a march when you can have a 3-2 clave instead? Why jazz improv? Why teach? I think those of us working on jazz are first drawn to the sound of it. It's exciting, inspiring, and deeply moving. When we live life, we improvise. I also love the puzzle, figuring out how music works. I joke that when I teach, I'm the one who learns from my students. I think of Sam, a wonderfully talented and neurodivergent composition student of mine here in New York. He doesn't adhere to compositional rules in the same way that many composers do. And this results in compelling and fearless work that few students would even dare try for. I think of Lucy, a classically trained clarinetist, studying online, living in a community where little jazz was available. Lucy went from not knowing how to improvise at all to becoming a brilliant jazz clarinetist, playing radio shows and full concerts throughout Ireland. This past summer, I was sharing the idea of love and struggle with my student Kai, a young 10-year-old jazz pianist. It was in a room full of students, and little Kai, he raised his hand, and I called on him, "Yes, Kai?" And he put his hand up to his chin and looked up at the corner of the ceiling pensively and said, "So maybe it's just one thing. Maybe it's just love." I replied, "Tell me more. How do you figure?" And Kai said, "Well, only something we love is something worth the struggle." I think all of this, building a career, living life itself, relates directly to jazz improvisation. And the downbeat, upbeat metaphor is really just the beginning. In jazz, there's that foundational structure, a heartbeat, a pulse, the bass, all of which never changes. And above that, yes, there's that ever-changing rhythm, all those syncopated upbeats. But really, everything above the foundation is fluid. The melody, counterpoint, even the chord progression. Do you know why it's called a chord progression? Because chords, the harmonies, literally progress from one to the other. When we first learn to play jazz, we start with simple progressions, songs with only a couple chords in them, and even that's hard enough. As we gain fluency in jazz, we start feeling like we can handle more chords and faster tempos. In jazz, like in life, we all have to learn how to play the changes. We have to adapt, to improvise, to find creative solutions as the world around us keeps shifting. And the faster the changes come, the harder it is to keep up. Yet this constant adaptation is what leads to growth, creativity, and ultimately success. When I started out, I never would have imagined that my little after-school program would eventually reach students all over the world, with students now in over 70 countries. So, to all of you, especially those of you in the arts, here's my message. Define your core and look to it in times of uncertainty. Nurture your love for your instrument, for your canvas, for your art. Then please know that starting from nothing is part of the necessary process. In jazz, we don't avoid dissonance, we embrace it. And that's what life is about too. The fast track might seem daunting, but it's where creativity thrives. And creativity really matters because your fast track, your set of struggles and syncopations is going to look very different than mine, and it will look very different than your neighbor's. If you look above your core, your foundation, and you start grappling with the fast track, with the changes, you'll be acing this, playing the changes like you're Charlie Parker, back from the woodshed. That's where the magic happens. That's where you find your rhythm.